Good morning, everyone. Would you please join us for our gathering hymn, I Brought My Spirit to the Sea.
Good morning. Welcome everyone to worship at First Unitarian Church in Portland, Oregon, where our mission is to nurture the individual spirit and together to work toward building beloved community. Welcome to congregants who are joining us live stream this morning, and welcome to all of you that are gathered here in the sanctuary with us today. We're grateful that we can gather in person because of vaccinations and our safe public health practices. And we thank all of you here for checking to make sure that your masks are properly fit over your nose and mouth. And it's kind of hard to believe that not long ago, the idea of actually having to wear masks to be together was not even in our minds, but here we are. Thank you all. And what a blessing it is to have the Amity Choir back with us in person. They were the last choir to sing before the COVID shutdown, and they're the first choir back on the chancel. So thank you, singers, and thank you, John, for your persistence and for lifting us with your loving and beautiful voices. Thanks again. So I have a couple of announcements to share this morning. Today at 1:30 p.m., we'll be hosting our monthly social justice community gather-in on Zoom, and all of you are invited. These monthly gatherings are for all community members concerned or engaged with issues of justice, whether or not you're a part of one of our action groups here at church. So we hope that you'll join us to learn about action items and time for readings, reflections, music, and most importantly, to get to know each other better. You can check the e-news or look for the slide at the end of the service to join the social justice gathering on Zoom. We also hope that you will join us next Sunday, December 12th, as we begin our special holiday services. Next Sunday is the music and worship service when our choirs will be here in the sanctuary to sing Poulenc's Christmas motets with music by Flor Peters as well. Also next Sunday, you can give to the learning community's Mitten Tree and Book Drive for community groups Home Free and Children's Book Bank. Please drop off new hats, mittens, gloves, scarves, and socks in adult and child sizes, as well as new or near new books for children, teens, and adults. After the service, bring your items to the breezeway between the sanctuary and Elliott Chapel. You can also bring gifts that our Committee on Hunger and Homelessness, or COHO, is gathering for Portland Homeless Family Solutions. Please see your e-news for more details on our holiday gift giving. Finally, if you are joining us via live stream, you are invited to attend our weekly virtual social hour after the service. And you'll see a web address and QR code on your screen at the end of the service that will take you there. You can also see our weekly e-news or go to the church website for these and all other church announcements. So once again, welcome everyone. And in a moment, we're going to ask you to greet your neighbor. And if you are watching online and have access to the chat option, I invite you to use that to say hello to others that are joining online. So please take a moment to greet one another.
Okay. Probably more than one.
Okay. That is music for the soul, to hear your voices. So Reverend Bill will now light our chalice here in the sanctuary, and if you have a chalice or a candle at home, you're welcome to join us as well. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
Let us open our minds and hearts to the place of silence and honesty, to the prayer for the healing of pain, to the yearning for wholeness, and to the hope for liberation. Let us open our hearts to the presence and the power of love. Come now, and let us worship together. And let's sing together our hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. Please rise in body or in spirit. Responsive reading. It's entitled Between Two Words. Between two words, choose the quieter one. Between words and silence, choose listening. Between two books, choose the dustier one. Between the earth and the sky, choose a bird. Between two animals, choose the one that needs you more. Between two children, choose both. Between the lesser and the bigger evil, choose neither. Between hope and despair, choose hope. It will be harder to bear. Let's join together now in singing our doxology, Spirit of God.
Each week in our service, we share our offering with an organization whose mission is aligned with our own. This church year, we focus our giving on climate justice. We support programs that bring innovative solutions and use an intersectional lens to support and build power for communities at the front lines of the climate crisis. This month, we share our plate with Seeding Justice. Formerly known as the MRG Foundation, their vision is a just and joyful Oregon where people, cultures, and ecosystems thrive by focusing on the movement for racial justice, gender, disability, economic, and environmental justice. Seeding Justice believes that philanthropy should be people-led, rooted in communities who have been and continue to be disenfranchised, and should seek deep, systemic, and long-lasting change. If you are joining this morning by live stream and wish to give your offering, you may click the Donate Now button on Boxcast or use the QR code that will appear soon on the screen. And those of you who are here in person, you are invited to use the information card in the back of the seat in front of you, which has a web address and a QR code. Or if you would like to give this morning by way of check or cash, you can use the donation box outside in the lobby. Thank you very much for your generosity, which sustains the ministry of this congregation and our partners in the larger community. This is the time each week where we share the joys and concerns of our community life together. You can send your prayer requests to be held by our ministers and lay ministers to prayer@firstunitarianportland.org. Or if you have a joy or concern that you would like to be shared with the congregation, you can send it to parishconcerns@firstunitarianportland.org. And today we have no parish concerns to share. So I'll ask if you will pray with me. Please take a conscious breath as we settle into our bodies and into our hearts. Spirit of love and life, we give thanks for this new day, for relationships that feed us, our church community that holds us, and our shared earth home that sustains us. As earth tilts us toward the expanding darkness of winter, let us feel her pull to slow down, to listen, to restore. As we still ourselves, may we hear her quiet, consistent call to remember the gifts of this season, the gifts of our lives. Spirit of wholeness, help us to understand that healing comes when we grieve and shed our pain of loss. May we allow our sorrow and memories to compost and nourish our hearts, much as decaying mulch feeds the soil through which life emerges. May the wisdom of nature's cycles help us to accept the losses we face, to recognize the necessity and power of presence to our healing. Spirit of love and compassion, please help us remember that we are each a part of this miraculous web of existence, no matter how we find ourselves in any given moment. Help us to extend our network of concern and love to those in our communities who struggle for security, for safety, for belonging. May we open our hearts and arms with compassion and generosity. May we share our resources generously. May we listen with humility for truths beyond our own experience. And Spirit of justice and courage, help us to transform the habits and patterns of our lives that maintain systems of oppression. Be with us so that we may join movements for liberation, rise up, raise our voices, organize, vote. In our solidarity, may we embody practices to cherish our shared earth home and the well-being of all her children, all her inhabitants. And Spirit of play and creativity, please grace us so that we may celebrate the simple joys of this sacred time, of a candle lit in the deepening night, of winter songs to move with, of the flavors of the season, and of the blessings of this community. Amen. So let's be together for a time of quiet and meditation. Please join us as we sing together a core of silence. Our reading today is called Invocation by Everett Hoagland. Architect of icebergs, rainbows, jeweler of crystals, sand grains, snowflakes, atoms, mason whose tools are glaciers, rain, rivers, ocean, chemist who made blood of seawater, bone of minerals in stone, milk of love. Whatever you are, I know this. Spinner, you are everywhere, in all the ever-changing above, whirling around us. Yes, in the loose strands, in the rough weave of the common cloth threaded with our DNA on the hubbed, spoked spinning wheel that is this world, solar system, galaxy, universe. Help us to see ourselves in all creation and all creation in ourselves, in one another. Remind those of us who like connections made with similes, metaphors, symbols, that all of us are, everything is, already connected. Remind us that as the oceans go, so go we. As the air goes, so go we. As other life forms go, so go we. Mysterious muse who inspired, in the beginning was the word, edit our thoughts so our ethics are our politics and our actions the afterlives of our words.
You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Could it really be that simple? Just let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Those lines are from one of Mary Oliver's best-known poems, The Wild Geese. You've probably heard it many times. But it can happen then when we have heard words or felt feelings, for that matter, over and over, they can begin to lose their power, their sharpness. They can lose their ability to wake us to truth. Could it really be that simple? That all we have to do is to relax into who we truly are and remember that there are certain things and certain people that we really do love, loving ourselves being at the very top of that list. Is that the spiritual discipline? Is that the practice that we need to follow? Doesn't moving toward wholeness, doesn't living into justice, equity, and compassion, doesn't it take labor and energy? Isn't it the work of lifetimes? Can we just relax into it? Doesn't it also require devotion? The devotions of a holy man in India were reported by Reuters a few years ago. He was called the Rolling Saint. Here's the quote. Lotan Baba, a holy man from India, rolled on his side for 4,000 kilometers across the country in his quest for world peace and eternal salvation. His rolling devotions inspired this poem. He started small, fasting here and there, days, then weeks. Once he stood under a banyan tree for a full 7 years, sitting for nothing, not even to sleep. It came to him in a dream. You must roll on the earth, spin your heart in rain, desert, dust. At sunrise, he'd stretch and swab any cuts from the day before and lay prone on the road while his 12 men swept the ground in front of him with sisal brooms. Even monkeys stopped and stared at this man rolling through puddles past storefronts where children would throw him pieces of butter candy he'd try to catch in his mouth at each rotation. His men sang and swept, sang and swept. He rolled and rolled. Sometimes in his dizzying spins, he thought he heard God. Just a whisper, but still. Is that the level of devotion required of us? Do our devotions of the Spirit need to be at the superhero level to receive just a whisper, just a hint of connection with the Spirit of life, however we may name it? Devotion is our spiritual theme for the month of December. And devotion as a spiritual discipline poses some challenge for liberal religious folks. Devotion can mean specific prayers or religious practices. They were not to be disturbed at their devotions. Prayer, meditation, Tai Chi, the whirling dance of the Sufi dervishes, these are all devotional practices. So was Lotan Baba's rolling. So is Mary Oliver's practice of centering on what we love. But devotion can also mean love or loyalty to a person or to a cause. They were devoted to one another, or they were devoted to the cause of reproductive justice. Used in either way, devotion suggests that we are not, after all, the center of things, or at least not the center of everything. That there might be a higher power or a calling or a value that commands our loyalty, that calls us to behave in certain ways and even requires us to put our own self-interest in second position. And it suggests that there's work involved. Anyone who has sustained a marriage or intimate relationship for any length of time knows that that devotion requires effort. Am I right? I think so. You may not need to walk on your knees for 100 miles repenting, but I have said and meant it, please forgive me, more times than I can count. And based on what you've told me, I'm not the only one. Real devotion to a cause can also impose requirements. Hasn't a commitment to environmental justice and sustainability, hasn't that required changes in your own life over time? They may not be like rolling across India, but then we haven't reached sustainability yet either. Devotion is something that is freely given. If there's any compulsion, then we're into a different conversation. It's freely given, but it requires a giving up of the priority we might place on our own wishes, our own preferences, our own habits even. To use language that we're beginning to get accustomed to, we cannot center our own wishes all of the time. Devotion asks us to limit our freedom in the service of someone or something higher or larger, something that is not us. And we submit ourselves to the needs of a partner or the requirements of a cause. We submit ourselves. Is this beginning to get just a little bit uncomfortable for any of you? Because we do treasure our freedom. We do. Submission? Well, we didn't really sign up for submission, did we? Devotion can call for a sacrifice of personal freedom. A sacrifice of personal freedom in the service of a larger love. I asked our Board of Trustees about devotion at their meeting last week. I asked them what person or value or cause they considered themselves devoted to. And I asked them how First Unitarian supported them in that devotion. It was one of the quietest and most devotional times I've experienced with the board. They moved into that space of silence and honesty. They moved into a devotional space. Several named family as that which they were devoted to. And that was usually a positive thing, but it can also be hard because First Unitarian is not a place that is comfortable for all the members of every family. The search for truth was named. The practice of gratitude was named. The connection to the holy, to the Spirit. Board members said that they were devoted to these as well. And they said that this church honors all of those. Board members also spoke of the importance of living in the now. This is the day we have been given. You've heard me say that. And they spoke of how we are growing in our devotion, our commitment to building beloved community, both in our personal lives and in the expanding circles of our communities and out into the world. First Unitarian was described as devoted to building beloved community at scale. And that's a phrase that is worth all of us remembering. So when I planned this sermon, I thought that I would go from this point to discuss the tension in our faith between individual freedom on the one hand and collective responsibility on the other. I thought I would talk about accountability, that piece of language that we're beginning to work with in terms of our responsibilities. I imagine that I'd go from there to offer a word about beloved community and to note that it is always a work in process, never really completed, always challenging our assumptions and asking us to grow, always expanding the circle of our concern. And I thought it could be a peaceful but a purposeful sermon, calling us all to the devotion, to the work of justice, equity, and compassion within us and out in the worlds we touch. And perhaps that is still my message. I may get there. But this has been a tough week. It's been a tough week for me, and I think for many of you as well. First, there's the new COVID variant and the not knowing of the impact that it will have. I know many of you must have brought that concern with you into this sacred space. And then another tragic mass shooting, a child killing other children, the gun purchased by his parents. Do you realize just how much tragedy, just how much sadness and loss we have grown accustomed to holding every day? But it was the argument in the Supreme Court this week that brought home the truth of where we are in this country. That was the truth that broke my heart open. The arguments in the Mississippi case to overturn Roe v. Wade took place on Wednesday. That morning, I joined other progressive religious leaders at Temple Beth Israel for a Planned Parenthood event of witness and prayers that women and all those who bear children might continue to control their own bodies. Oregon, we know, is the gold standard for reproductive justice. It's not perfect by any means, but conditions will not change here in Oregon for those who bear children, nor in California, nor in New York. But the situation seems likely to change dramatically in Mississippi, where there is only one abortion care provider left, in Texas and Missouri, Montana, more than half of these United States. Professor Michelle Goodwin describes this as a war on women. And it's hard. It is likely that the court will usher in a day when a young girl, a child herself, will be required to carry to term a child resulting from rape or incest. And a justice of the Supreme Court of the United States said that that would be no great punishment for that girl, that that child could just leave her baby at the firehouse door. This was said by a justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Thankfully, there were other voices. Justice Sotomayor said that there would be a stench hanging over the court if it overturned Roe or allowed Roe to be overturned in practice. Just like there is a stench that hangs over the court for its gutting of the Voting Rights Act. We had to take all of this in this week. And we need to be prepared, I have no doubt. We need to be prepared not only to do the work of building beloved community here, within this congregation and in our personal lives, we need to be prepared for a time when the progress toward justice, equity, and compassion, when progress that we had assumed to be settled We need to be prepared to live in a nation where voting rights are no longer guaranteed, even in theory, where the right to reproductive health care depends on where you live and how much money you have. Do you know that maternal mortality in this country is already higher than in any other first world nation? In terms of support for maternal health, we are already at the bottom of the list. And as we gather again and begin returning from whatever this time away has meant, we are returning to a world that's even more sharply divided between haves and have-nots, where have-nots are disproportionately black and brown, but they are also white. As religious people, our most fundamental commitment, the value to which we are devoted above all else, the first of our principles, is to a world that is not organized around the privilege of the few and the oppression of the rest. We are devoted to the inherent worth and dignity of every person. None of us truly saved until all of us are saved. But we are emerging from the pandemic into a world where victories we believed we had won, victories that we thought were settled, are in danger of being reversed. And the work of building beloved community, we know, is never completed. Beloved community is always a work in process. But what the truth of this week forced me to know is that the need for our commitment, the need for our devotion, will be greater, not less, as we return. We have entered the season of longest dark, a fallow time for the earth, when there is rest and renewal and the gathering of energy for the promised coming of spring. This is the time called Advent in the Christian liturgical calendar, a time of waiting for the miracle of new birth. In that tradition, it is also a time of preparation, a time to prepare for the coming of new hope. And so, in this season, it is important to rest and to find renewal in gathering friends and family in person for the first time in a long time for many of us, in remembering seasons past and the love and the support that saw us through trials and tribulations before, in centering our lives on what we truly love. We need the renewal of this season because more is going to be required of us. And I believe that we need to deepen our devotions, our commitments, our covenant. We need to deepen our devotions together so that we can be allies to others in our community and allies to ourselves as well. Allies, truth tellers, lovers of life, devoted to the hope that we can create together. And whether you pray or meditate or roll or dance your devotions, we will need to be ready to make them real. In the words of our reading this morning, help us see ourselves in all creation and all creation in ourselves and ourselves in one another, so that our ethics become our politics and our actions become the embodiment of our words. We have our work cut out for us, but we can do this as long as we're clear about the stakes and devoted both to the power of love and devoted to one another. we can find hope together. I want to invite you now to join me in that space of silence and honesty that is known by many names and by no name at all. I want to invite you into a time of shared devotions and meditation. Let us begin with a deep cleansing breath, in and out. And another in and out. Feel your body, its parts. Feel for tension in your shoulders, in your chest, in your legs. And where you find tension, allow your body to let it go. Feel the seat upholding you, and sense the firm earth beneath you. Now, look to your center, your heart, your spirit. See the love that is held there. Feel its power. Feel its goodness. And if that love is constrained by fear, by old harms and the scars they have left, or by new bruises and tenderness, allow yourself to know that the love at your core is strong, strong enough to heal hurts, and strong enough to salve the tender places. Sense the spirit of life at your core and in those around you, each of you a source of hope. And allow yourself to pray in gratitude and in honesty and in hope. Allow yourself to know all that holds us back from beloved community. Allow yourself to know all that holds you back from your power. But also allow yourself to feel strength that can join with your own strength. Strength that can make the vision of beloved community more than an idle dream. Before returning, feel the strength and the stamina at your core. And now, begin to return, renewed, breathing in and out, ready for the days ahead. Return knowing that this place of rest we have visited will be available to help renew you in the days ahead. Return strong and devoted to the power of love that you have found within, the power of love that can help shape the world, into a world in which we actually want to live. May that be so. Ashe and Amen. Will you join in singing now our final hymn, From All the Fret and Fever of the Day? In this season of long dark, may we find rest and quiet to listen for the still small voice within. May we find rest, but not mindless rest. May we find a mindful rest that will prepare us to return, ready to face the challenges ahead together. This is the day we have been given. Let us rejoice in it and be glad. Go in peace, practice love. Amen.